There are a number of factors at play in the M&A landscape in this environment, in this cycle, that are very similar to the trends, the developments, the deal drivers in prior cycles. However, I will say one factor, one particular deal driver is a bit unique, and it is the underlying factor driving virtually every M&A conversation we're having: the importance and value of scale. That defines and drives almost every conversation. And what I mean by that is, on the scale of buyers and sellers, virtually every institution is too small, or at least they would suggest that they're too small, given increasing fixed costs, operating costs that are not scalable. The larger an earning asset base, the more profitable an institution is. So from our perspective, we see sellers discussing scale as an obstacle. They are too small. They are too small to maximize profitability, to overcome regulatory costs, to drive shareholder value, and as a result are increasingly exploring a potential sale. On the other side of the table, buyers are too small, and we've heard that from folks as small as 50 million to as large as several billion. We are too small, and they are going to explore increasingly acquisitions as a way to realize incremental scale. Now, as a firm, we frequently get asked, what is the magic number? At what size do you get scale? And frankly, philosophically, we don't think there is a magic number. All else equal, the larger an institution is, the more efficient it is, the more profitable it is, the higher ability to drive shareholder value. While it's easier to appreciate, at least on paper and analytically, that additional scale as a would-be acquirer drives value, it becomes a lot harder when answering the question how to realize that scale, especially via an acquisition. The why is relatively easy. The how is the hard part. And so for those folks considering an acquisition, we would highly advocate a very thoughtful, deliberate, what we call an acquisition blueprint. And this is answering the how to do an acquisition. That would cover various factors: the regulatory environment, the opportunities, geographically where to be focusing on, thinking deliberately about size, type of institution, certainly think about the strategic and financial implications of an acquisition, and very much getting executive management, board, outside advisors, everybody on the same page well in advance of actually proceeding with a potential acquisition. For those folks considering a sale, we highly advocate a similar sale blueprint. The decision to sell really ought to be very deliberate, very well thought out, and frankly, because of the M&A environment and the unique factors that drive value, drive transactions, it takes a lot longer. And so as a result, we recommend well in advance of a potential sale, boards, executives, sellers deliberately think through a number of factors that will go into the transaction. They should understand their value, for example. Any longer-term contractual obligations, have a full appreciation for how those might impact a transaction. It's critically important that a seller appreciates the buyer landscape. The buyer list typically is, in general, over the last few years, not only changing, but also shrinking. And a lot of the value a seller can appreciate or realize is directly driven by who their buyer might be. So understanding who those players are and how they might view that institution is critically important. And then finally, and potentially most importantly, is the process by which a seller pursues a sale. Historically, the conventional wisdom is that a bank would hire an investment banker, put the bank on the market, solicit offers, and take the highest bid. Now, while that maximizes the timing and potentially the price, we actually discourage that. Our firm and our practice highly encourage what we call one-off or negotiated transactions from the perspective of our sellers. We've found that we've still been able to maximize value, but also maximize discretion, minimize leaks, and while it takes a bit longer to get to know one particular buyer, we can confirm the cultural fit and also decrease what we call information asymmetry. The more a buyer gets comfortable with our potential client, not only is the fit there, but it generally translates into a higher valuation. While we had record consolidation in the industry last year, and for all intents and purposes it will likely continue, not everybody will, or frankly should, be involved in M&A. There are many institutions that should continue to focus on a status quo strategy and/or an organic growth strategy. For those folks, I have good news and I've got bad news. The good news is, generally speaking, M&A activity, at least in the near term, in your marketplace, involves market disruption. As the signs change, as integration, as the data processing contract changes over, there is disruption. And even in the smoothest of integrations, there may be opportunities to poach customers, clients, shareholders from your competitor that was just acquired. So that's generally the good news. The bad news, however, is that for those folks that you compete with that are acquisitive, they are necessarily realizing more scale. They're enhancing their profitability. They're deepening their bench of talent. They're largely and likely increasing their lending limit. All else equal, they're becoming more formidable competitors. So be mindful of the changing landscape around you as you focus on your organic or status quo strategy.